Okay, so last night this is what we went over in class. We've got this drawing of a possum that Megan Kelly did. Thank you, Megan, for your contribution. What we're going to do is we're going to get this to the point where we can have a two-color screen print. You guys can see it's a done with a pen, Sharpie kind of thing. This is going to be the key plate. The key plate is going to be the top layer. We will then go in and I'll show you guys a couple of ways to infill it with color. The first thing we need to do is clean this up and get this to be solid black or white. So the fastest way that we can do this, first we'll crop it. The fastest way that we can get this to be solid black and white is come up here to Image, Adjustments, Threshold. It's going to give you a little slider tool. You can move this guy back and forth until it gets to the point where you're happy with your drawing. We'll say right there. Now when I zoom in, you can see that it is 100% black or 100% white. This is exactly what you want. I'm going to back up one step here. You want to make sure that you're always working at 300 dpi and set it at the size that you want to work with right off the bat. So this is going to be a good size. We can work with this. I'm going to get rid of these little corner dots up here. Okay, and I'll just clean up the edge just so we don't have any remnants left when we decide to go print this. Okay, so a few ways that you can add color into this. I'll start off with a pen tool. We'll add a vector, a red layer behind his hat and his nose and his tail and his scarf. Exact same way we did last night. So I'm just going to go through this and I'm going to be really quick with it. Unlock this layer. Okay. And now we've got the pen tool on. We've got it on fill. And now I'm just going to start clicking. It'll automatically add a vector layer over here. And I'm just going to go through, and you can see that I forgot to set it to RGB, so we go up to Mode, set it to RGB, don't merge, and now we can make that red. And I'm just going to finish this out. So this is one way that I will go through and do an infill. This creates a vector layer. Now this is a raster image, so when I zoom in you can see there's little pixels in there, and if I were to blow this up to billboard size, potentially we would have little jagged edges of pixels. If I wanted to make this into a vector, you can do that in Illustrator with image trace, or you can come in here and I could select everything that's black, right click, say make work path. Tolerance is how many pixels your path is going to go around. You don't want it too low, you don't want it too high, unless you're going for some sort of stylized look. We're going to leave it at 2.4. It's going to draw a path around this image, just like so. So to get all this path onto a vector layer, we need to create a vector layer. And the easiest way to do that is just use the pen tool and click, and now we've got a vector layer. I can name that key plate. Key platey. Now I need to copy the path. So I come over here. There's my work path. Edit, cut, and now I come back to layers on my key plate layer. Edit and paste. Where's my paste button? Paste, and there you go. So now we've got a vector. So you could come in and tweak some of these. If you like working in vectors, you could then start moving things around. You can choose individual ones. And you could just tweak things like that. So I'm going to save this. We don't really need it anymore, but I'll save it. I'm going to move my red layer underneath of my key plate layer, so this is what it's going to look like. Now you see when I do the red layer, you definitely want some overlap. This builds in a little bit of a tolerance, so if your black were to shift a little bit or your red's a little bit off, you're not going to get a white line going around this, so you always want to build in a little bit of tolerance. You definitely don't want to see that white line right there. So I'll just come over here and I'll color in the tail with the vector tool in the exact same way, with the pen tool in the exact same way that we did the nose, and then we'll go in and do the scarf. If you've never used the pen tool before, it's a great tool. It takes a little bit of practice to get used to it, but it's not that difficult. I'm going through this fast just for the sake of the video. There may be parts of this that were going to be a final print. I may take a little bit more time. And it doesn't matter what color that you're going to work on the screen. There are times where I will work on really bright contrasting colors on the screen just so I can tell my layers apart. But then when I go to print this, I'll use completely different colors. So I've got two reds here. I should have combined those layers. We're going to cut that, and I'll put this on that layer. Edit, paste. There. Now all my reds are on one layer. Okay, so that's one way to do that, is to use the pen tool. Another way, if you want to use the little paint bucket tool or the pencil tool, you can absolutely do that. So we can make another layer, and if I wanted to use the pencil tool, I've got red in here, I could just go in and color that with the pencil tool. And you can see once again I'm overlapping the black. I can fix that little imperfection later, not a big deal. And so as long as you're doing this on a separate layer, you do not want to work on your on the key plate layer. Just keep all of your colors on separate layers. And you see I'm going underneath of all of these black lines. You definitely want to do that. Just let the black overlap the red. This will not matter. The black is going to be opaque. If you wanted to be really fast about it and use the paint bucket tool, as long as you have contiguous white, you can go in and do that. But now, if I turn the key plate off, you can see there's the white behind the black. So you need to come in and fix that. Do this. And there's an issue with using the paint bucket, and that is if your key plate is just a hair off, you can see this little white line. So a lot of times what I will do is right click, go to blending options, click stroke, and choose your color, and then put it on the outside. 13 is a little high, we'll start with 6. Say OK, and then that stroke, if you turn the opacity down, you can see that there's a stroke. It gives you a little bit of leeway in what you're doing. So turn this back up. Okay, we're going to finish out. We'll go ahead and do a scarf. I'll just use the pencil tool for his scarf. Do this really quickly. And I'm not worried too much about being precise. Like I said, I would clean this up if I were going to make this another print. So you've got that. Now this is ready to go. So this is the print that you want. If you want to see what it looks like on a white background, you can make another layer. Okay, put this way down here. And just put some white. So this is white paper. You would print your red first. Then you would print your black. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I need to separate this now into the layers that I'm going to print on my transparency. So I'm going to make the canvas size twice as wide, say 18, maybe 19. Push that off to the side, say OK. And now I just want to drag my red layers. There's 2 red layers, keep those together. Maybe I'll rasterize this and combine it, rasterize that, combine it. You don't have to rasterize your layers, but it just makes combining them a little bit easier right now. Merge down. So now I've got white, red, black. My white layer is a damn mess. I'm just going to delete that and make a new one. Layer, new layer. Yeah. White, red, black. The white is going to be the paper. So we got paper. We got our red layer. I'm going to shift the red. Over to here. Now we've got our black layer there. These are the 2 screens that we're going to make. So you can either use 2 different screens, or you can print these on the exact same screen, just as we did last night. Before we make this into a transparency, we need to make this black. Fastest way to do that is with the paint bucket tool. You can leave this off, click red, and there you go. Now this is ready. Click that, or go print this on your transparency. You will end up with red layer, black layer, ready to print. Okay, this is how you guys should start out. I'm going to show you guys how to do a CMYK print. I would advise that you get a couple of these under your belt before you jump into doing CMYK. I'm going to close this. Okay, for the CMYK print, we're going to use this photo of this little boy. The first thing we're going to do is to get this the size that we want. I'm going to crop this down. Crop, and now we want to size it to the size that we want our print. You cannot resize this later. I would not advise resizing this later. So you come in here to image size. We're working at 300 dpi. The width, we'll say we're going to do something about 16 by 14. Okay. So you've got a photo that you're interested in doing a CMYK print. It's somewhat photorealistic. You'll see in the end. First thing you need to do is come up to Mode, go to CMYK. Okay. And now we're going to come over here to Channels. We've got a cyan, a magenta, a yellow, and a black. You're going to want to halftone each one of these. I like to open up a new file and drag those halftone layers over into a new file. So to do that, we'll just go to New, and it doesn't really matter. We'll say 18 by 24. This is going to be the canvas that I'm working on. This is going to be the original image. Okay, so one thing that you need to know when you're doing the CMYK print is you can't put all of your dots on the same layer if it's cyan, magenta, yellow, black, because they will overlap. Now if you want to just do a straight black halftone, I'll show you how to do that first. That's really easy. Image mode grayscale, okay. Image mode bitmap, and you're going to change bitmap. You'll put that on halftone screen. Make sure your output's 300. It should be okay. The angle, if you're doing just a black and white halftone image, put it at 22.5. This is going to keep the dots at a pattern where you don't see geometric patterns showing up. And the frequency, the highest that you can go on your frequency is your screen mesh divided by 4.5. So if you have a 180 if you have a 180 mesh count, it's 180 divided by 4.5. It's going to be somewhere around 30. I would advise not to go that high. I would stick somewhere around 23 to 26. The lower the number, the bigger the dots. The higher the number, the smaller the dots. The higher the number, the more detail you get, but it makes the screen much more difficult to clean. So we'll stick around 23. So okay, now you can see that there's a grayscale image there. It looks like there's gradients. When you zoom in, it's actually nothing but white and black. You can print this on a halftone. You can print this on a transparency. You could make your screen and pull ink through that this is ready to go. This is if you want to do just a grayscale image. If you want to do this in cyan, magenta, yellow, black, come back over, channels, we'll click on just the cyan layer, and now everything is the exact same except for the angles that you're going to use. So you can find the angles, I just googled screen print angles CMYK. This website's the second one that comes up. Here are your angles. We're going to do cyan first. That's 15 degrees. So we come back over to the little boy, image mode, bitmap, and we're only bitmapping the cyan channel. OK, 300, halftone, OK. Leave the frequency at the same, and for this we'll put 15 for the cyan layer. Image mode, grayscale, OK. And now I'm just going to drag this over here. So I'll change the colors as we're going along. This is cyan, so we say 100, 0, 0, 0. And we just want to see what this thing looks like. So paint bucket. Okay, there's your cyan layer. So this could be this could potentially be the first layer that you make. Come back over to the original. Go back up to CMYK, click on the magenta layer. For magenta, we are going to use 75. So image mode, bitmap, OK, OK, and leave 23. For this, we say 75. Grayscale. I changed it to grayscale because Photoshop doesn't like for you to move things around when they're bitmaps. Drag this over there. Now you can see it's overlapping. I can't really see through it right now. I'll show you how to fix that here in a second. 0, 100. Okay. So now we're going to dump some magenta ink in here. Click the black. Now if I want to see what this is going to look like, just get it lined up. And then you can come to layers and put that on multiply. So far this is what our image looks like. Come back over to the original, click back on history to CMYK, go to channels, click yellow. The yellow angle is going to be 0. So you just repeat this process 4 times for each color. Whoops. Yellow. Bitmap. 4 times the exact same thing, except you just change the angle. 0. Grayscale. Exact same thing. And you don't have to change this to the actual ink color. You could just make a file and drag your 3. I'm only doing this to show you guys what it will look like. And then I'll show you how to set up your transparency here in 1 second. Yellow ink. And then once again, to see what it's going to look like, click multiply. And we'll get that lined up. Snap in place. Come back over, and now we repeat for black. Channel, black. The angle for black is 45. Image mode, bitmap, OK, and then angle 45. And then you're going to drag that over, and this would be your last layer on your screen print. Layer, and you don't have to change this because it is already black. Put it on multiply. So this is what your screen print would look like in the end. When you zoom in, you're going to see all of the tiny little dots. You can see what the different angles does. It keeps those things from lining up on top of one another. As I said, if the 23, if the frequency is lower, these dots would be bigger and it would look slightly more stylized. If they're smaller, it's going to look slightly more photographic, but it becomes really difficult to clean. Now I'll show you one other thing that I didn't really talk about last night, but it may be worth mentioning, if I were to come back up to the CMYK and I want to, I'm going to do this black, or let's go all the way back up here. So now it's an RGB image, and I want to just do a grayscale. Say grayscale, discard. If you want to adjust anything, you should do all of the adjustments now. Any sort of brightness, contrast, anything like that, do that now. You can't fix it later. But if you go into halftone it, there's another option down here, 23. Remember, 22.5. If it's grayscale, if it's just going to be one layer, you can change the shape of your dots from round to diamonds, ellipse, lines. So I'll show you, if I click cross and I come in and I do this, it looks the same here. When you zoom in, you get a different dot pattern. This doesn't really matter. This is totally up to you. You can do whatever sort of halftone pattern you like. Image mode. Okay. Ellipse, and now you're going to see that there's little ellipses. So this doesn't really matter. That's not going to affect anything. That's up to you. Okay, so that's how you do a CMYK print. I would advise that you wait to explore this. Do a couple of 2 colors, 3 colors, just straight screen prints before you jump into doing halftones. All right, that's pretty much what we covered on Photoshop. There was a few other things with textures and stuff, and it was really halftoning and layering. I do have a couple of other older videos. If you guys want to go back and watch some of those, I go in and I build little images. So you can watch those, and if you guys have questions, please ask me in class. Write them down, ask me in class. For those of you who missed the setting up demo last night, let me know, and I can meet up with you and show you how to do that individually. All right, thank you guys.